So my boyfriend, Kyle, 26, recently got a promotion to general manager at a restaurant he works at. I, 22, work full-time as a pediatric nurse and my hours are kind of all over the place right now because of the virus. Anyway, when he got home to tell me about his promotion, I was ecstatic. He's a hard worker and deserves it 100%. However, because it happened on a Tuesday, we decided we'll go for celebratory dinner with our mutual friends Saturday night. I was scheduled to work Saturday, but I figured as long as I was able to get home, shower, and change, all is well. I'll just sleep late on Sunday. So now it's Saturday. I unfortunately lost a patient who had been fighting for her life since birth. I've been her nurse every time I was working in that department, and her family were very important to me. I was absolutely devastated. When I got home, the last thing on my mind was dinner. I told Kyle about what happened and he gave me a hug and said he's sorry to hear that. About 10 minutes later, he softly asked if I was going to shower before we leave. I told him I really don't feel like going out, but he insisted that I go since I promised, and if he goes without me, his friends will ask a lot of questions. I didn't want to, but I agreed since I promised. While I tried to keep a smile on my face, it was obvious that I was upset. One of our friends asked if I was okay, and before I could just say that I had a rough day at work, Kyle said, "She's been bitching about a patient she lost at work today," and scoffed. I was flabbergasted. He's never said anything like that before. I replied saying, "That patient was 3 months old." He shrugged and said it's not my own child and it shouldn't bother me this much. I was furious and embarrassed since it went down in front of our friends, so I just put down enough money for my meal and went home. I put his stuff in a box. He wasn't living with me but would stay with me a couple days out of the week. When he came back, he flipped out and I said that I just need space. That was 2 weeks ago. I have since changed the lock since he had a spare key. He says I'm overreacting and that I'm the asshole for ruining his big night. That I selfishly made it all about me. He accused me of thinking higher of myself because I'm a nurse and he works in a restaurant. Honestly, I don't know where that came from. He also said that he figured since it was a celebratory dinner for him, he thought I was going to pay, so walking out on him was very embarrassing because he didn't bring his wallet. One of our mutual friends, Amy, called me and said that while what Kyle said was fucked up, that me leaving like that was unnecessary and made the whole night awkward. I feel bad for ruining the night for everyone else, but I just couldn't let him get away with that. I'm very proud to be a nurse and I don't want anyone, especially my partner, to talk poorly about it. So, am I the asshole for walking out on dinner?
Storytime about how I caught my husband cheating on me with our very young nanny. Disclaimer, this is not my storytime. I was sending me on Instagram. I'm 45 years old and my husband is 10 years younger than me. When we first got married, my friends kept telling me not to marry someone so much younger. They told me that he would eventually cheat and leave me for someone younger. I refused to believe this hope because my husband and I really loved each other. Or at least I thought. We met at a party a few years ago and he made the first move right away. He asked me out on a date and a few weeks later we became boyfriend and girlfriend. A few years after that we got married, and after years of trying we finally got pregnant and had twins. They are both 2 years old now. My husband's job requires him to travel a lot. I own a really big salon and business is good, so we have a pretty good life and are able to afford a lot of things for our kids. Since my husband travels, my schedule has to be really flexible. I take care of the kids in the morning and then I go off to work, leaving them with the nanny. Our first nanny was a lot older and she had lots of experience, but she unexpectedly quit on us, so we had to find another one. We decided to look for one of those nanny agencies. We ended up interviewing about 5 nannies, but my husband was set on one of them, and she was the youngest out of all of them, 18. Oh yeah, and the most attractive too. My husband told me that maybe we should try someone younger so that the kids can have fun, and I said yes. The nanny would cover for me for about 4 hours a day when I was at work. Her and I started to get along really well. She would tell me about her boy troubles and I would give her advice. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how I caught my husband cheating on me with our very young nanny. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I sent me on Instagram. The nanny and I started to become really good friends. I even started telling her about the problems I was having with my husband. Little did I know that she was the problem. Like I said in part 1, my husband travels a lot. This is what we would usually fight about. You see, it was actually really easy for him to travel less. All he had to do was pick a different region for his job. Instead of a 6-hour flight, it could have been a 2-hour trip. His excuse was that he would get paid less. When I was telling the nanny about our issues, she told me that I should just let it go and let my husband have his freedom. But the way she said it really bothered me. I ended the conversation and told her that she could go home. When my husband came home, I mentioned to him what the nanny said. I told him that I didn't like the way she told me that I needed to give him his freedom. He started to laugh and said, "She's just a young girl. She's probably just saying what she thinks you need to hear." I decided to listen to my husband and I let it go. A week later, the nanny comes over to take care of the kids. By the way, as soon as she would come to my house, I would serve her a plate of food or make her anything she wanted before I left to work. She sat down to eat. I could see her messages on her phone, and the name on the messages was the same as my husband's. I asked her why she was messaging my husband and she quickly put her phone in her purse. She didn't even know what to say. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how I caught my husband cheating on me with our very young nanny. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I sent me on Instagram. When I asked her why she was messaging my husband on her phone, she did not know what to say. I asked her if she was okay. Then she replies with, "I just needed some advice for my car." She was so nervous. I asked her to pull out her phone and give it to me. That's when she said no and started putting up a fight. She told me I had no right to check her phone, but I didn't believe her. I ripped her purse from her hands and grabbed the phone. Before I even have a chance to look at the messages, she starts calling me fat and old, and that my husband is planning to leave me for her. Honestly, what she was saying didn't faze me because my goal was to look at the messages. And she was pretty much right. In the messages, my husband promised her to leave me for her, and that he was sick of me and the kids. I begin to scroll up and see all of the pictures that they send each other. You can imagine what they were. By the way, the nanny was only a day from turning 18. Yup. Out of nowhere, she starts breaking plates and glasses and verbally abusing me. She even said that if I didn't leave him alone, that something bad would happen to me. I grabbed her by the arm and threw her out of the house. But I kept her phone, so I called my husband from the phone. When he hears my voice, he hangs up the phone. When he finally got home, we got into a 6-hour fight. I made him leave the house, but apparently the nanny went crazy. She started stalking him and he had to get a restraining order against her. Serves him right. Her parents are threatening to press charges. I don't want my kids to grow up without a father, but I don't want to get back with him. What should I do?
Am I the asshole for how I reacted after I discovered my husband left our daughter in dirty diapers for 4 hours? My husband and I have been married for 3 years and we have a toddler and an infant. The problem is that he's helpless. There, I said it. He doesn't have a job, spends his entire day on the phone or watching TV or playing on the latest console that I bought him with my money. Or just chilling on the couch eating couch snacks. He doesn't cook and doesn't know how, and when I ask him to tidy up the house, he's like, "Why, are we having guests over?" He does help, but it's the bare minimum. He'll take the trash out and then go back to the couch while I cook, clean, and get up with the baby. Then if I dare to criticize his behavior, he goes silent for a long time, like 2 to 3 weeks, and I hate it. Am I the asshole for how I reacted after I discovered my husband left our daughter in dirty diapers for 4 hours? I'll suggest jobs for him so he can help since I pay for everything, and he get excited then miss the job interview every single time. Days ago, I went home and found our 2-year-old daughter was left in dirty diapers for 4 hours. Even though her dad was home and was right there on the couch snoozing. When he said he planned to change the diaper, but until after his nap, a switch flipped inside of me. I royally lost it. I yelled at him to get up and then I did the following. I made him clean the entire house top to bottom, moved the couch to the basement, confiscated his console, canceled his subscriptions, and turned the Wi-Fi off. Oh, and I took his couch snacks. Am I the asshole for insisting my boyfriend eat respectfully at a nice restaurant? So my boyfriend and I have been together for 7 months. We usually eat takeout if we want to get something to eat. However, I was recently promoted, so we went to eat at a very nice Italian restaurant to celebrate. Like, one with an enforced dress code. My boyfriend is not the nicest of eaters, which can be kind of gross, but I deal with it. However, I didn't realize he had no table manners. When our appetizer was served, he looked at me jokingly and asked if I'd be upset if he enjoyed his meal the same way he would at home. I said that we were at a nice restaurant and there were other customers around. He didn't say anything but instead started digging into the bruschetta with his hands. Am I the asshole for insisting my boyfriend eat respectfully at a nice restaurant? He got sauce all over his fingers, but I let this go. However, when the pasta came out, he smirked at me and ate like he hadn't eaten in a week. He then dropped his fork and started picking up pieces of chicken and noodles with his fingers, getting sauce everywhere. The tablecloth, his hands, his clothes, and face. He also burped after destroying a side of the table. The table next to us was astonished, and my waiter even asked him if he was okay. Customers were staring, and he put his feet up on the chair next to us, blocking the aisle. I asked for the check, which I paid, and told him that I was embarrassed, but he said it's my fault for not letting him enjoy the meal.
My husband and I have been struggling a bit financially because we're saving up to purchase a new apartment. He is used to eating fast food when he went to work, and he would spend more than $300 a month, which is about $20 daily. I talked to him about it, and he agreed that I would make him sandwiches for him to take to work. Everything was going well, and I noticed he wouldn't respond when I asked whether he liked the sandwiches I made, but kept asking me to make more than 2 since he was always hungry. Yesterday, he came home with some friends and coworkers, and we sat at a dinner table when his friend brought up the sandwiches. He said they're delicious, but they're a bit pricey. I was confused, so I asked him to explain, and he said my husband sells the sandwiches I make to his coworkers and then goes and buys his own lunch from the restaurant. I began arguing with him after his friend left, and he said there was nothing wrong with it. I told him I will no longer be making him sandwiches if he's selling them to buy fast food. He defended himself, calling this an overreaction since he's not spending money on fast food and said I was just being unfair to start an argument over this. I just walked into the bathroom and stayed there, and he said I owe him an apology for God knows what and that he didn't think it was acceptable of me to lash out and say I won't make him sandwiches anymore. So I've been 100% financially independent from my parents since the day I graduated college. I have a sister who is about a decade older than me, and my parents promised each of us a set amount of money towards our weddings. My sister used this money to have a big, beautiful wedding, and now it's my turn to get married. But my parents have admitted that they gave away the money they had saved for my wedding to my sister. My sister, a mother of one, had a series of health problems and had to freeze her eggs if she ever wanted to have another child. She didn't have the money and only had a few weeks before her hysterectomy, so she asked my parents for the $13,000, which they obviously gave her. I know I sound selfish for prioritizing my wedding over her fertility, but she was 36 when she got the diagnosis. There was no telling how long it would take for her health to recover, and it would be years before they could even afford supporting another infant. I knew she would never have the means to use those eggs before she was 40, and she has made it very clear that she wouldn't want to have an infant at that age. age. In my opinion, she acted in panic and wanted a safety net that she knew she would never use. But I'm still upset that now I won't be able to have much of a wedding because I've been counting on the funds my parents had promised. I'm not upset that they gave it to her, but I am upset that they gave it to her knowing nothing would come of it. They traded my wedding day for her brief peace of mind. So, am I overreacting? Am I the asshole?